So I had a fun time at the Hollywood Improv. So got to get to see Jiaoying Summers, Adam Hunter. Um, so I did go back to San Diego after that, and I went up to LA again because I wanted to go to the NoHo Comedy Festival at the Haha Comedy Club on Lancashire in North Hollywood. So Uh, I was there for I guess they call it the industry showcase, which was at 9 p.m. So, as you imagine, leaving San Diego at, let's say, 6 p.m. on a Friday night, going up to LA, and, well, it was a little bit longer than I expected, even though I know the traffic going up to LA is always, you know, pretty brutal. But normally, I was starting to notice that if you leave at a certain hour from San Diego to go to LA, you could probably get through most of the traffic actually. So it's not as bad as if you were to leave at 3 versus leaving at 6 something. But I still made it to the show. So I finally made it to Lancashire. And I was actually there to see Natasha Chandel. So I saw her before. She was at the courtyard um, downtown San Diego. I think it was like 9 days ago. So I finally get to sit up front row. Of course, being in the front row of a comedy show, you're always a target. But honestly, I'm an easy crowd work guy. If you want to talk to me during your during your comedy set, I'll say whatever I can. I'll try to work with you. Um, uh, I I volunteered a lot of my answers at this festival, mainly because it's actually kind of cool sometimes. Like if you're just by yourself, that they can talk to you about being by yourself at a comedy show. Um, but then it kind of leads into other questions. So like I have no problem answering questions. And well, I just started talking about either being cheated on or um, I'm Vietnamese or I'm actually, going to produce a comedy show where I'm looking for headliners for my comedy show. Um, and I just kept going with it. I said I was looking for headliners, producing shows between LA and San Diego, finding good comedians. So, and the reason why that came up is because, well, what was it? Kira Sotanovich brought up the fact that I was sitting, you know, in the left side of the stage, and then I think there was Robert Omoto also brought it up. And of course Jack Jr. Cool guy. I gotta make it even more funnier by just provide answers, and he can just use it as this fuel to make his set even more funny. So honestly, I um, it's cool being a part of someone's crowd work and just being a part of so many comedy shows. I really don't mind whether if you're making fun of me or have me kind of help with the comedy thing, because like you're gonna start noticing that I'm gonna be at a lot of comedy shows, and like I'm making my rounds when it comes to shows, and you start noticing that my name pops up a lot, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. But I do love comedy, and I know it's always part of the show. Never take anything personally, as I've learned. And honestly, if you're going to be part of the comedy industry, you can't take things personally because, in a way, you can't afford to. Plus, you can't let it seem like it affects you. Um, then you always just move on. So, like, I'm not one really to be like the type to do comebacks or anything, but I always get what the joke is, whether it's at someone's expense or just finding that gold material when it comes to like making the crowd laugh, because you know a comedian should be able to pick anything and use it to make people laugh, because main point of the show is to make people laugh. And it wasn't like ill will or anything. Like it wasn't like a super big diss or anything. Like whether or not you actually know who I am, but like you know, I'm always the type to always have a good time, and the way that I always operate is I always would like to talk to the comics and you know, just have a short conversation. Doesn't have to be long or anything, and it can be both about the show, could be about personal stuff, could be about casual stuff. I mean, I don't mind whichever level of comfortability two people can talk about stuff, whether I'm a audience member or you can see me as a really cool guy to talk to, be your friend. So, anywho, um, so I did see Natasha when I first walked into the haha. She was outside, and I think she had to make some phone calls. And I ran into her. She recognized who I was. I was there to see her, and then see what kind of comics were gonna show up for this comedy festival. And I guess apparently my show became two shows because apparently, there was a 9 o'clock show, and what was originally scheduled was like there was supposed to be a roast battle at 11 o'clock on the same stage. But I guess there were a lot of changes that were happening that day because not only was my 9 o'clock being pushed back just a little bit, because I think it started like at 9:15 or something. It must have combined with an 11 p.m. show that actually was not advertised. And you basically have your industry showcase and you combined it with like um, another show of pop-ins. So they combined the shows together apparently. A secret show on top of what was already advertised. I was told that there was an actual no-show. So they said they put a lot of comedians with a little more time. So that's always cool. It's a win-win because, the show doesn't get cut short. It actually gets somewhat extended. And plus, it gives comedians a chance to work out a few more jokes with the extra time they're given. Um, so I remembered going in first time at the Haha Comedy Club, and I waited outside in line. They give you the wristband, and then they start asking people in short groups to kind of start going in because they were starting to clean up the main room where the show was going to be at. Uh, then I remember ordering some chicken tenders with French fries, and I also ordered some like 2 bottles of water. Um, I mean the chicken tenders were pretty decent. I would probably say 8 out of 10. Um, I can tell it's a lot lighter in the texture and coloring because it doesn't look like your normal like chicken tenders. It look like a little more golden, crispier, but it looks a little more slightly crispy and maybe a slight shade of gold and maybe a little more um, white looking. So, but nonetheless, it reminds me of chicken nuggets once I bit into it. So, yeah, I guess you could say it's a glorified chicken nugget. Anywho, as I got my food and enjoying the show, I remembered um, I remember this guy named, I think his name is Jason, but I don't know his last name. I might, so after doing a little bit of research, his name might be Jason Sheed, but I don't have confirmation that was actually him, but I kind of recognize his face. So he kind of helped with hosting the first part of the industry showcase. And I remember he did a comedy set. That was kind of funny. Um, I would say his comedy was like um, yeah, I would say like 8.4 out of 10. So it wasn't too bad. Got a lot of good laughs, and I actually noticed a lot of the comedians actually did pretty well, except for one actually. Um, I remember the next person that came up was Kira Sultanovich, and that's when she started talking about me being alone to the side of the stage, not weird at all. I've seen her before though. She was at the Get Well Dressed Comedy and Jazz show with Josh Edelman. So I guess it's like my second time seeing her. Um, now that I recognize her name, she's pretty loud. Um, yeah, she's funny though. She was at least an 8.55 out of 10. So that was fun. And I think I remember there was I think his name was Henry Sir. He was pretty funny. I would say he was about an 8.5. Um, Crowd really liked him. I remember there was a Matty Fontana. I think he was a Red Sox fan. Guy is super intense though. Um, I thought you did all right. I thought he was like about maybe eight. I don't know, 8.1 out of 10. Um, let's see. I also remember there was um, I believe there was Wellington Ojukwu, and guy was super funny. I thought he was like maybe a 8.8 8.65 out of 10. And I guess what was announced during the show was that I guess Wellington was voted the funniest comic um, out of everyone from the industry showcase of all the shows. So kudos to Wellington. I actually got to talk to him after the show. Um, I remember there was Vince Cardera. He was kind of funny, but I don't think he hit too well with the crowd. So I thought that maybe he was like more of a 7.8 out of 10. Um, there was a Greg Roque or that uh, Greg Roque. Guy was in a wheelchair, but he was really funny though. Um, thought he was about an 8.5 out of 10. Uh, um, I remember there was a Sam Tripoli. I think he was kind of funny, but I think I would have said he was more of an um, 8.2 out of 10. And then I don't remember if there was what is his name? Sam Gar or Ken Gar? And I think that might have been the no show. Um, so I can't really say much about that because I don't remember seeing him. Um, there was another pop in. It was Jeremiah Watkins. I guess he's kind of an established comedian now in LA and blue verified check mark. um, so there was a common thing about almost every single comedian that went up. There's this one couple, maybe I think they're an Armenian couple, and I think they were engaged. And well, I don't know if it's typical or not, but you have the poss- possible future groom who's like super serious, never smiles, and then you got the very high spirited fiance bride, and you would think that they're complete opposites. But it took about maybe 10 or 12 comedians to finally get the guy to crack a smile, so he finally laughed at some point and didn't want to say much during the comedy show. And it usually cuts the crowd work with him with his limited answers and not saying anything. And then the girl had to kind of say some stuff. So but apparently they said that they were together for either 3 months or they've been engaged for 3 months. So they sat about maybe 10 feet from me. So there was another chair in between us that was empty. So, um, yeah. And I guess every single comedian had to kind of make note of this couple. Of course, there was a large table of Armenian women or Latina women at another table close by. And then there's the three people behind me that I actually had talked to in line. It was a couple, and then it was the guy's brother that was part of their three-person group. And the comedians tend to kind of make note of the third wheel. So, um, I mean, other than that, I mean, there was one other guy. I guess he had worn a bandana, and they wanted to talk about that. Uh, so yeah. Um, and then I remembered Jack Jr. then took over the mic and hosting duties after I think Greg Roke had went up and Jason no longer was doing the hosting anymore. And I think Jack Johnson mentioned that now that they now have another show to do, and I guess it's now the 11 p.m. show, which had like other comedians. And uh, so Jack Jr. he did do a lot of crowd work with me, and I had to explain that I am Vietnamese. I was looking for I'm producing a show between the San Diego and LA, and I wanted to do a show at the mic drop. You mentioned that the owner of the mic drop was actually there, and then you know he's mentioned like, hey, so if she's here, what do I need you for? So like, um, people laughed, and again, like I said, I like to kind of help the crowd work show kind of become more funny. Whether I volunteer, you can do that at my expense. I don't mind. Um, so yeah, that was fun. I would say Jack is pretty funny with crowd work and his normal jokes. Um, he hits it pretty well with the Armenian Mexican crowd. So I would say Jack is about a 8.9 out of 10 for his crowd work and jokes, and I guess being a part of his crowd work. So, and I guess apparently I made his suit because I'm Vietnamese, and I also have the appearance of a school shooter or a bomber. um, and I somehow worked together with that really serious Armenian guy who was engaged. So, yeah, fun times. Um, and then I think I got to see Natasha Chandel finally. Um, her comedy, I got to hear most of her jokes. She talked about how, um, I guess, when it comes to guys having morning wood and women don't like to be poked in the morning when guys have a morning wood. And um, she said the best way to deal with morning wood is to play dead. So that got some good laughs. Um, and I guess I volunteered an answer where she asked if anyone's been cheated on. I raised my hand, and so we actually kind of had an interaction on stage. Um, so she said she'll make me feel better. I think they led to a joke about how, um, I guess, her boyfriend's grandmother or her own grandmother uh, does much better than Natasha when it comes to attention from the boyfriend, I guess. So yeah, I really like Natasha's set, but the crowd, I kind of felt like they were a little more chill for her thing, but I would say she was at least an 8.1 out of 10 for her comedy. Now that I've seen her twice now, but the second time I got to focus a little more because, well, I got to sit in the front row. um, but yeah, I think she was there all weekend from Thursday to Friday and also last night, Saturday. So a lot of shows to do. I think she's super tired, but I did get to see her boyfriend, Luis Miranda, the DJ. So kind of cool. And at least I got to talk to Natasha for a little bit before the show started, and a little bit on stage. And hopefully down the road I get to see her again, and her new comedy and her maybe some new jokes down the road. Um, I did get the chance to see um, Alan Cunningham. So I had the pleasure of seeing this guy, and I guess he started together with Jack Jr. when the comedy club had started. So, guy's pretty funny. He talked about how people shouldn't be triggered. If you are triggered at comedy shows, then it kind of gives you a sense that you should work on your triggers. How you don't always get, work on your triggers so you don't get triggered when you see something that reminds you of something of a bad time or something offensive or something. Like, you know, mention how uh, your aunt or a friend got hurt at a 7-Eleven. So the next time you go to a 7-Eleven, you see someone getting a Slurpee, you don't like act all emotional because the Slurpee is associated with 7-Eleven and it triggers that bad moment. So so I like how he said, like, he doesn't like how comedians can be PC. Like, if you're a comedy show, comedians should be full, all out, uncensored, and just say what you want to say. Um, I mean, as long as it's not attacking somebody, you should just say what's on your mind. So, I mean, that's kind of the main point of doing comedy. So, uh, so yeah, he was talking about how um, one time he thought this woman was very fine. He didn't know that the woman was trans, but he told us a story about that. A lot of people laughed at his jokes. So I thought that Alan Cunningham did pretty well, and I thought that he was like a 8.8 out of 10. Um, so got to talk to him after the show, and I found out he has a podcast too, so that's pretty cool. So I'll do listen to it later. Same with Natasha's kind of dating podcast. Um, so overall, I would say I had a good time. I'm glad I went to the Hog Comedy Festival and I got to meet some of these great comedians, and can't wait to see a lot of these comedians down the road. So um, but yeah, it's kind of cool that I got to see basically two shows for the price of one, actually. And it did kind of sneak in for a roast battle. I kind of noticed Los Digits was actually hosting out on the patio. So I thought that his show was actually on the main stage, but apparently they moved it to the patio. So I found out where the patio is, and yeah. So then I came back, drove back to San Diego. So get ready for this Hurricane Hillary, and there was some heavy rainfall, but it was pretty much light winds and light rain to start off the Sunday. But um, you know, get a free car wash. Well, that's all for me, guys. Talking about comedy shows for these past few days. Can't wait to see what kind of comedy shows I'll get into next week. So be safe, everybody. Remember to have some good food, watch some good shows, watch some good action. Be safe, hang out with your friends and family, and I will talk to you guys again soon about sports, comedy, and food. All right, boom. Tiggy Maximus signing off, baby. Later, guys.